Today I'm going to talk about truth and its relationship with control issues. So, the word in Hebrew, emet, means truth. And I recently heard how the first two letters, aleph, mem, aim is mother. And this is the creation aspect of truth. It has the power to make real, to realize. And the second half of the word emet is mem taf, which is mace, death. And this is the power of truth, to destroy. And as a vessel for truth, we're also a conductor. How honest are we willing to be? How balanced are we able to be? And this is probably what most of us want, even if we don't know how to exactly access it. We may look around for a good meal. We may spend hours browsing on tabs or buying things from the store. But what we really want is to feel balanced. Not too little, not too much, not too big, not too small. Because the truth will set us free of who we really are and how we really feel. So there's these blank spots. And a lot of us might rush to fill the void, and yet when we don't, something can flow. A void is like the negative space that has a channel, and something can pass through the channel. And then when things are passing through, like with water, it stays pure. Stagnant water has the ability to become filled with bacteria, swarming creatures, filth, really. So blank spots, we don't have to quickly stuff them up and keep things there. You know, we're all practicing letting it flow and for the sake of purity. And then there's this sense of formlessness, and that's a different type of truth that might be scary, which is when it's like invisible. It's when you can't see in the dark and anything could pop out, anything could have eyes. We have to release that energy of what we're filling in the blanks with, and this is the kind of energy that's not quite like revealed obviously as a blank spot, and then you put something there, you know, we fill it up. At least we know, right? At least we know what the person wants to do or how it's going to go, and then we feel some sense of control. We could prepare for, even if we're preparing for being rejected or wounded, which is unpleasant, there's a sense of control in the knowing. So when we allow for possibility, we actually are allowed to exist more as we are, the truth of ourselves, rather than where we fit in or all the roles or everything that's not exactly true. So a formlessness and a blank spot allows for truth to give us that balanced energy. And working with the blank spots means clearing ourselves of the projections. When we look out, we see future and past versions of ourselves. Like, what am I idealizing? What would I like to be like? Where have I come from, you know, and it's like very quick to judge, and sometimes we just need to breathe in and surrender and bond in that space. The desire for oneness needs a receiver, so we might see someone suffering and then just like breathe in their suffering. Instead of looking away, instead of like getting quickly caught up in, I don't want to suffer, I don't want to be a part of that. And then realizing maybe there are moments where in our suffering, we just need someone to receive us, like as we were. And that's true love, true connection. And that's the above nature. We grant innocence to whatever we're seeing. We're willing to be ourselves. We're willing to let others be themselves. And this is when we allow people to be who they are, and we're curious. We're not so quick to project onto them. And even when we catch ourselves projecting, we take a moment and just check in with that projection and say, I see this bald guy walking and this woman with sort of a funny hip, and it's like so easy to say, oh, well, what about me? Like, I think of my hair and I can't control how thin it is, and I think of my hip and I can't control about if it's, you know, sturdy. And so I recognize like releasing the control and then feeling so much love toward them. So it's a very rewarding practice, and this is like clearing our reflection away so we can actually see what is being shown and loving our reflection at that moment, or making peace with it. This is the willingness. And then in terms of skillfulness, the desire for oneness needs a giver. So this is where we clear the block. The block is, for example, instead of like, oh, I'm always seeing myself in everybody and I can't help it and I'm really looking for that. It's like kind of like I'm looking for an other. I'm looking for anybody out there who could give me their ear to listen to me, or it's a moment where I feel so wounded, like I feel so misunderstood. I just want someone to hear that I make sense. It's so simple. And just to feel understood. So in that case, it's like this, I have to learn the skills to relate. And I need someone that I can give my presence to, where it's not going to be too much or too little, where I could actually see them too, beyond my own wound, beyond the wound I have, which is maybe feeling unheard or feeling like I don't matter. The wound itself, the self-esteem. So in those moments of rupture, of our own internal rupture, there's no one to blame. And it's easy to try to throw someone under the bus. We may often, like, the minute we feel like, oh, yikes, I kind of used to hang around people who I felt better than, so I could feel better about myself. And then I see, well, that person is always walking around like they have something to teach everybody, but, I recognize that they're probably just wanting to be around people that they can teach so that they don't feel like, they have to remain teachable. So wanting to stay teachable is actually learning skills. So this surrender to transformation is to become someone new, to become someone after the wound, and to understand that we're having our wounds bandaged so we can breathe, but also like the wound is also a void. What can grow out of that? Like newness. So this desire for oneness and this balanced energy, I'm going to say, is related to our relationship with our Creator. The Creator is the true refuge. That is the place to go to bandage the wounds when we can't look inside. We just need someone to protect them for now. And also when we want to be transformed, we need to, who's going to be something, what's going to be it. It's hard to use words. Like, how do we get past whatever we already know? How can we show up with that tiny little nugget that says do this, and then we get there and then it's perfect, and then we alignment to the next nugget, and then we're like, okay, I'm going to go like that, and then that nugget brings us, and then this sort of sewing, this weaving happens, and we're part of this, not just the Creator, but the Creator's also the orientator. Sometimes you just have to like flip it all upside down and suddenly you see, or realizing it's our reflection, and it's also our shadow, and it's also our channel. So finding new ways of relating to the Creator, the one who made us each. And there's a consolation that we all have the same source. It's like a gift is that, you don't have to be God for anybody else. Everyone can connect to God. So this willingness to be transformed, this desire for the receiver, or when we're desiring the giver, reminds us that if we open for God just a needle size, I think the quote goes that it's a hole the size of a needle, then God will turn that hole into the size of a chariot. Now, what's amazing is that we could kind of go into the microcosm and say one cell could fit through the needle. And a baby starts from one cell. So there's a part of us, there are stem cells in our consciousness, for example, that can be life energy for us, give forth. And from there, a channel can be birthed. And it can be such a big channel to fit a whole chariot. Can fit all of us with our riches and our baggage that we've accumulated and all the parts of us we want, and that's the mercy of a Creator who isn't out to get us. And so when we're walking around prepared, because we have to know everything, it's because we haven't yet accepted that there's a Creator or orientator, orchestrator who is not out to get us, in fact, is taking care of us and has great plans for us. And so now, how do we surrender to the truth? How do we, each one of us balance our scales in this time of especially delusions, illusions, distortions? I mean, it's nice to talk about, but like, how do we constantly keep checking that our weight is being distributed? What goes in has to come out. I mean, I have had food issues where, I would eat and then just like end up being full of literally feces and hot air, so being full of shit. And we all know people we can call, we say they're full of shit, but we're all full of shit in some way, full of hot air. So we take in, and I realized, growing up, my family didn't talk about the negativity, the problems. We didn't talk about what we would consider bathroom parts of the relationship, the difficult stuff coming out, the hurt feelings, frustrations. And so surrendering to the truth is also becoming willing, as I said earlier, I'm going to keep referring back to this, willingness and skillfulness. It's being willing to learn about somebody else beyond who we decided they need to be in our story, and it's learning the skills to be able to see what they can actually do for us and what they can't, and in a way developing some level of a healthy selfishness. The truth is necessary because the true self, the healthy selfishness says, if you're not meant for me, I'm going to trust that this is not going to work. And so I can't push for it too hard. I can only tell the truth and let it kind of speak for itself, and hopefully attract in like more of a real match rather than like a salesperson kind of attitude of like looking for loopholes, trying to make it sound attractive. I want to talk about Moses for a second. He made a snake a bronze snake on the top of a staff that anyone who was bit by the snake could heal by looking at it. So it's very interesting how a lot of the people who have done harm in a certain area become the ones who now can teach people how to grow out of it, and become the healers, and become the ones who give closure to victims, for example, of that area in which they perpetuated strife. So speaking personally, it's inside of me to want to push and force for my needs to get met, to want credit and not blame, to control my voice and breath through repression and contraction, to give blame but not credit, to shame the one not in control who's out of control, to overestimate my abilities and dominion, to underestimate my actual weaknesses that aren't strength, to avoid sitting with what I can't change to my will, to degrade and humiliate a receiver who isn't the outright giver on the outside, who, often as a aside, often the one who's, I'm learning in my life, and this is a big one, that's why I'm commenting, the one who's actually giving is often receiving the other person's needs and innocence in giving their time, energy, resources, money, so on. They're receiving the other. So there's a lot of secret under-level tones to all this stuff. But I was clearly very superficial on the outside. I had a snake in me that was like controlling, manipulative, looking for a way to get my way, and maybe to go over someone's head about it or behind their back about it, being dishonest to control others' perceptions and knowledge, not trusting people's free choice, innocence, and compassion, that they would actually be there for me if I would be vulnerable. Aiming to desensitize and tough love with people, like, really snake-like, like be on guard, because you could get straked, rather than just accept and melt, So as a vessel for truth, being the truth is immunity, enlightenment, and eternity. And I'm going to speak about this briefly, but in short, I just gave a whole rundown about how I used to be more like a snake. And not to say just me, I mean, there's pretty much everybody I know can be a walking snake, but this is built into us, this control issue, not trust, having doubt that everything's going to be okay. But it took this, Moses had to make a snake for people to look into, to be healed. So there is this sense of fully looking into this snake in us, and then we notice that this is the medicine. So the snake is like the caduceus that goes around and around on the medical staff. That's a sign of medicine. And it's, the poison that we think is the medicine, is often like science became witchcraft in many ways. Like if you think about it, what people are saying the medicine can do, and mixing up these potions and things, and it's going to cure you, and also like services that you can do, and on and on. But it's the very medicine that can be a poison, and the very poison that can be a medicine. So in using these control issues, we can control the parts of us, and we can align our devotional nature, that we wanted something so bad we were willing to do whatever we could to get it. So when we're able to say that the truth is recognized by the observer, it becomes an intimate, loving relationship. We start to recognize this snake as not a bad guy, but as part of us. This is not easy. This is not easy. It's like, okay, I accept my snake-like nature. In another video, I might talk about my lion-like nature, you know. But right now, it's about the control, the wanting to be in charge. Snake doesn't have arms or legs, it slithers. And we talk about the tree of knowledge. The knowledge comes before the tree of fruit, because you got to know which tree to eat from. So tree of knowledge is, you know, our snake nature might want to control. We might want to know even when it's not true. So this addiction to knowing means the more we know good and bad. If we're going to know just for the sake of knowing, we actually might be knowing the wrong information, orchestrating our lives around it, preparing again, like for, as I mentioned, judgments, rejections, resentments, preparing for people to be evil. And this is our projection. As I said earlier, we're looking at our own versions of ourselves. As we walk around paranoid, we're actually confronting our own inner snake through everyone else. When we walk around kind of wounded by the snakes that we had met, we may end up wanting so badly for there to be a snake to help us. Like, we know everybody has poison. Every time we've been attacked, we take that information as, now I know how to attack others. So we say, I know you can attack me, but can you help me? I know you could reject me, but can you listen? Like, this is the two sides of this work. So when we take a step back and we look at the snake and the control issues that come from wanting to know versus allowing a sort of a surrender to the truth, we actually can arrive at the real truth. And I'm going to now talk about the immunity. Truth is immunity. You don't need to remember everything. You don't need to convince anyone of anything. You don't need to make it sound good. You don't even need a lot of people to recognize it. The truth is immunity, enlightenment, because the truth meets us no matter where we're at. It meets us in any dimension, any place. You can learn the truth all by yourself, with others, with one other person, in art, in music, in walking, in math, and you could learn the truth no matter what, and you'll know. And eternity, the truth will last because it can change to match your perception. So the truth is the truth, and learning to trust the truth and learning to be the truth is this work. So the truth is left standing as everything else falls. The truth has the least strings attached. The truth sets us free. The truth holds on to us. It doesn't need us to cling to it. And the truth needs no polishing, no adornments. So in this culture, obviously, we're all snakes. When we're on Instagram, when we're on dating apps, when we're on LinkedIn, everything seems to have some white lies inside of it. And even the fabrics we buy, they could say 100% of something. And it's like, at this point, we're living in a world, and maybe never, maybe it never was, but it is not reliably true. So you've got to be the source of the truth in your life. And you have to look at your control issues. It's not going to come from the outside. And so even as our focus changes, the truth was always there. And there are moments where I'll wrap this up by saying I felt so ashamed and lonely and bad that I didn't see it right in my face. But I wasn't ready. And we know what we know now. We knew what we knew then. And we will know what we are meant to know. And more will be revealed. So I wish you all a beautiful day. And may the truth be with you. And may you be with the truth. And may you and the truth be one. And may there be oneness in your truth. For the sake of being a sacred channel, to be a priest or a priestess, to be a king or a queen, on the one end of learning the skills of how to relate to people, and the judge is, the priest or the king bring the people to the divine law, to the truth, and then the judge is like bringing the people to the law. You can't run away. So for this sake, the path of being a sacred channel. Priest is number 3, priestess, and king is number 4, and judge is 7. So if you like numbers, that can be interesting. Goodbye. Have a good one.